Fireworks outside. Betrayal inside. The HOA president called it a vendor debrief in a Hotel King suite. My wife called it community work with late checkout. I didn't explode. I went quiet, pulled the folio, traced the Shell LLC, and pressed record. 3/7 later, I enjoyed my freedom on 4th of July. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell me where you're listening from in the comments. It helps more than you know. My name is Evan. I'm 38, a warehouse picker with 4 arms that don't fit most sleeves, and the father of 2 kids who think sparklers are magic. Liam, 9, and Ava, 6. Kara, my wife, does community engagement. That's what she calls it when she's out late, sitting on folding chairs with people who like microphones. The man with the microphone that night was Rick, HOA president, the kind of guy who calls every woman kiddo. He clinked Kara's cup and told the cul-de-sac, "None of this happens without our events chair." Everyone cheered. I flipped another rack of ribs and smiled, because I'm good at smiling when I'm not sure how to feel. Kara's parents drifted over, Marla and Jean. She wore a visor, he wore opinions. "Look at our girl," Marla said, patting Kara's shoulder the way people pat a dog they're about to borrow. "Leadership suits her." Jean squeezed my elbow. "You really ought to think bigger, Ev. Rick gets things done." I kept my mouth shut and my tongues moving. Liam tugged my apron, asking if the fireworks would be as big as last year. "Bigger," I said. He grinned, missing tooth front and center. The plan changed when I came in to grab more foil. On the kitchen island lay our family tablet, screen lit, notification banners stacked. A hotel rewards email had popped in for Kara's account. "Thank you for choosing Riverside Suites." The stay date matched a weekday vendor meeting I'd heard about at dinner. Room type, king. Perks used, bonus water, late checkout. 2 letters in the note field, R.Graham and K. Graham is Rick. Kara never changed her name. The date, the time, my chest got tight the way it does when a pallet slips. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe the HOA booked rooms for performers. Maybe the hotel auto-fills names. Maybe I needed water and to mind my ribs. I set the tablet down carefully. When I turned, Kara was in the doorway, a silhouette against the fairy lights, her smile already on. "Everything good?" she asked, light as a sparrow. She kissed my cheek and plucked a piece of char from my shirt. "Yeah," I said, "we're low on foil." "I'll grab some from Judy next door," she said, and she was gone, a breeze in a red dress. The toast happened after dark. Kara stood on the makeshift stage of 2 pallets and a plywood sheet Rick calls the platform, cup raised, voice clear. "To our neighbors," she said, "to every hand that set up a table, picked up a list, showed up when it would have been easier not to." She looked at me then, quick, the way you check if your take rose. I lifted my cup. The crowd cheered. It felt like summer is supposed to feel. Then she leaned, just a hair, toward Rick, and "to good partners," she said, lower. He tipped his cup. It was nothing. It was everything. We cleaned well past 10. The kids fell asleep on a blanket under the picnic table. Marla swept the patio as if she owned the concrete. Jean argued about fireworks ordinances. I scrubbed the grill grate with the last of my patience. Inside, I stacked plates and found the tablet again. The hotel email still glowed. I touched it with a finger I hadn't washed properly. The message opened. "Reservation confirmation. Riverside Suites. Vendor debrief. Room, king. Guest, R. Graham. Guest, K." And then the rest of the name clipped. My mouth went dry. The subject line went from bold to normal. The blue dot vanished. Red. And for a second I could not tell if I had marked it red or if Kara had. Morning came with the smell of lighter fluid still on my hands and the kind of silence that means someone is trying to be noiseless on purpose. Kara moved around the kitchen like a stagehand, precise, invisible, already dressed in a neat navy dress that said "meeting," even if her calendar did not. "Permit run," she said, lifting her coffee. "Rick wants eyes on the parade route." "Before 8?" I asked, opening the pantry.
The aluminum foil looked like a spent comet. She said, "Vendors start calling at 9. She kissed Ava's forehead and touched Liam's hair the way people touch a sleeping dog when they are about to leave it alone for too long. "I'll be back by lunch." Liam shuffled in, blinking. "Can we do sparklers again tonight?" I said, "Practice run. We'll test the bucket and everything." Kara's phone buzzed. She glanced, answered, nodded twice. "On my way," she said. To me, "Text me if you need anything." It sounded generous. It felt like a hedge. After the door shut, the kitchen exhaled. I washed my hands, cleared cups, wiped my own fingerprints off the tablet I'd touched last night, as if the device would testify against me. The hotel email sat in the inbox, now simply part of the stack. Coupons, school newsletters, spam from a roofing company that stalks hailstorms. I didn't hack. I didn't guess at codes. The laptop on the counter is mine. The browser our family uses, the passwords inside it are ones we saved together when life was still simple and we couldn't remember which account needed a capital letter. I typed Riverside Suites into the search bar and hit enter. The autofill did the rest. A reservation portal, a loyalty number, a friendly line, "Welcome back, Kara."
The stays were right there, in corporate font. Tuesday last month, 1 night. Thursday 3 weeks ago, 1 night. Vendor debrief. Room type, king. Perks, 2 waters, late checkout. There was no line that said infidelity. There never is. Just the quiet arithmetic of what most likely happened. I closed the lid when Ava patted in with her stuffed rabbit, dragging one ear on the tile. "Addie, my moon necklace is stuck in my hair." We worked it out slowly, my big fingers and her small patience. She smelled like baby shampoo and smoke and childhood. "All better," I said. She nodded seriously, then asked, "Are fireworks loud because they're excited or because they're angry?" "Because they want to be heard," I said, and felt something in my ribs answer back. At 9, my phone lit up with a text from Kara's mother. "We'll swing by for lunch. Jean wants to see how the grill cleans up when someone knows what they're doing." I typed and erased, then settled on, "We've got leftovers. See you at noon." Between pouring more cereal and starting a load of laundry, I called the city to confirm the parade permits out of sheer pettiness. A woman named Pam told me the route was already approved and had been for weeks. "Vendors don't need to eyeball the sidewalks," she said, "unless their eyes cut checks." At 10, someone knocked. It was Marcus from 3 doors down, a dad with a permanent sunburn and the kind of calm you only get from coaching kindergarten soccer. "You got a second?" he asked, holding a paper coffee cup I suspected did not contain coffee. "Sure," I said, stepping onto the porch so the kids wouldn't hear grown-up voices. He leaned against the railing, looked out at the cul-de-sac where chalk drawings still ghosted the asphalt. "Weird question. Did Rick ever pay your fence invoice?" "I never sent one," I said. "I fixed my own fence." He nodded. Right. He told the vendor committee he handled it and billed it through Greenview. He took a sip of not coffee. I quit that committee, by the way. Bids didn't smell right. "Greenview?" I asked, letting ignorance play across my face. He didn't need to know I'd already seen the website that looked like it was built in a hurry by someone who loved stock photos of grass. P.O. Box, brand new LLC, always underbidding, always winning. They consult on everything. He said consult the way some people say mold. I let the word sit. The porch boards creaked, old lumber telling the truth in the only language it knows. "Thanks for telling me. Judy's counting the vote again this year, if you ever got curious about proxies." His eyebrows did a little suggestive dance. "She's Switzerland. Also, she bakes a mean lemon bar. Judy is a saint and dangerous when armed with powdered sugar." He smiled, then got serious. "Evan, you're a good neighbor. Just, if you go looking, keep it clean. We need adults, not a bonfire."
I'm not looking to light anything, I said, thinking of the email, the room, the initials. I just want to know what's true. After he left, I read the HOA bylaws for the first time like they mattered. They talk about the right of members to inspect records. It didn't feel like a trap door. It felt like a handrail. I drafted an email that used boring phrases on purpose. Kindly provide recent vendor contracts, bid comparisons, and minutes of procurement decisions for the last 2 quarters. I copied the general board email. I copied the ombudsman address I found on the state website. I read it twice to make sure it didn't sound like a threat. I hit send. At 11:47, Kara texted, "Running late, permit office backed up." A minute later, Pam from the city called to ask if I'd meant to hang up earlier. "If you still need anything about the parade, call me," she chirped. I thanked her and hung up harder than necessary. Noon brought Marla and Jean, and a critique of the existence of paper plates. Jean thumbed the grill grates like a jeweler inspecting flawed diamonds. "You could upgrade to stainless," he said. "Rick has a Weber Genesis, well earned." Marla arranged leftover ribs as if symmetry could apologize for her daughter's absences. We ran into Kara at the cafe. She looked exhausted, so devoted. "Permits'll do that," I said, handing Ava a fork and Liam 2 napkins. "How was she?" "She said you're thinking about the board," Marla said. "What a hoot. No offense, dear, but it's real work." "I'm handy," I said. "People like handrails." Jean grunted. "People like winners." When they left, the house got quiet in a way that I didn't trust. I collected cups, faced my reflection in the microwave door, and did the stupid petty thing. I checked the reservation portal once more, as if the words could change when I looked with different eyes. The stays did not change. The rooms did not become twins. The initials did not uninitialize. But a new line had appeared. Subtle, harmless, corporate. Loyalty points pending. 2,000. A note underneath, guest acknowledgement received. The door opened a few minutes later, her keys jingling like a signal. Kara set down a paper bag with 2 salads and a smile that forgot to reach her eyes. "Traffic. Permit offices are a nightmare." "How's Pam?" "Who?" "The woman at the city. She sounds nice." Kara paused. Something flickered and died. "She's fine," she said. "Why?" "No reason," I said, taking the salads. "We missed you for lunch." "I brought dinner," she said, then caught herself. "Late lunch." She went to wash her hands. I looked at the tablet on the counter, the way it sat there like a family member at a table who won't meet your gaze. Later, when the kids were napping and the house could hear itself think, Kara stood in the doorway with her arms folded. "Do you trust me?" she asked, like she already knew my answer and had rehearsed her reaction to it. I opened my mouth. What came out was not heroic. "I want to," I said. She nodded once like I'd given a quiz answer that would not be graded. "Then do." That night, I packed the sparkler bucket and checked the garden hose and lined up the metal tray we used to bury the sticks when they stopped being stars. I told myself a dozen reasonable stories about hotels and initials and vendor meetings that needed king beds for mysterious reasons. At 10:41 p.m., my phone buzzed. New email. "Thank you for your stay. Riverside Suites. 2 waters, late checkout." The subject line wore my wife's nickname like a monogram. The thing about suspicion is it eats quietly. It does not slam doors or break plates. It curls up in the corner of the kitchen and watches you make sandwiches for your kids. And when you glance over, it tilts its head like a stray cat as if to say, "You sure?" I did the ordinary things first. I poured Liam more milk. I cut the crusts off Ava's peanut butter sandwich because she'd decided, overnight, that crusts were spicy. I loaded the dishwasher. Then I sat at the table with a pen, the HOA bylaws, and my phone, and I treated the problem like a pallet manifest. Items, quantities, destinations. Our bylaws are a sleep aid unless you actually need them. Tucked between sections about carport paint and trash bins was the paragraph I was hunting. Members' rights to inspect books and records of account, including contracts, ledgers, and minutes, upon reasonable notice. It wasn't a weapon. It was a door with a key, and the key was boring paperwork. I drafted an email like a responsible citizen who would never dream of starting a bonfire. Dear Board, pursuant to Article V, Section 7, I'm requesting inspection of vendor contracts, bid comparisons, and procurement minutes for Q1, Q2. I'm happy to review at the management office or pay for copies. I copied the general board at address. I copied the property manager. I also found the state HOA ombudsman site with its cheerful clip art and added their general inbox because I've learned that bureaucracies behave better when other bureaucracies are watching. Send. Then I printed the email and put it in a real envelope with real paper because I grew up with a father who believed in receipts. At the post office, the clerk slid me a form. Certified? She asked. Please. She stamped and initialed. The thunk of the date stamp was more satisfying than it had any right to be. On the way home, I stopped at the library and looked up Greenview spaces in the state's business registry. The filings were public, document scans with the edges of someone's lunch visible in the corner. Greenview had been formed 6 months ago. Registered agent, a generic service that also handles shell companies for people who do not want neighbors. Principal address? A P.O. box at a strip mall that sells vape juice and tax prep. No owners listed. That doesn't mean wrongdoing. It means opacity. Opacity thrives where bored people stop asking questions. Back on Sycamore, Marcus waved me over from his driveway. He had his tailgate down and a laptop open, a soccer ball pinning a stack of papers from the wind. You mentioned Greenview, he said, keeping his voice at the level of someone discussing mulch. He clicked through a deck I recognized at once as the kind of committee presentation you make when you still think slides can make people honest. Columns: Vendor A, established landscaper. Vendor B, regional maintenance firm. Vendor C, Greenview. Bid amounts, scope, references. Greenview didn't just underbid, it underdescribed. Consulting appeared like parsley on every page, fresh but not filling. How many meetings? I asked. 3 I sat through, he said. One I walked out of when Rick said, let's keep this moving, and someone asked for a third bid. Process gets allergic to sunlight fast. He closed the laptop. Judy's counting ballots again this year, he added. She's as neutral as a level. I'm not trying to run a coup, I said. He shrugged. You're a dad who brought ribs and zip ties and common sense. If that's a coup, please stage it. At home, the kids were on scooters, sparring over who got the cracked helmet because cracked looks cooler. I sat on the stoop and made a list in a notebook because typing felt too pinky up. Records requests sent, email plus certified, ombudsman CC'd, business registry, Greenview equals 6 months old, P.O. box, no owners. Marcus's deck, ask for copy. Talk to Judy about election mechanics, neutral. Do not accuse. Keep it dull. Dull wins. Kara's car pulled in just after 2. She carried a paper bag with a salad and the expression of someone who stayed late at a party they didn't actually like. Good citizenry day? She asked, trying and failing to be playful. I mailed a records request, Article V, Section 7. Evan, she said, setting the bag down a little too hard, this is exactly the kind of thing that creates drama when what we need is unity. What we need is to know where the money goes, I said. I kept my voice steady. You wouldn't let Liam go to a birthday party if the invitation didn't say where or when. She stared past me at the kids. We're planning a family event, she said. You're turning it into a deposition. Then the answer will be easy, I said. We'll all be relieved. Rick is good at his job, she said finally. He gets things done. So is Pam at the city, I said, and watched her blink at a name she'd claimed not to know. The blink wasn't guilt. It was calculation. She was deciding which story to tell next and whether I still deserved the whole thing. Can we not do this in the driveway? She said, exhausted, and for once, I agreed with her. Inside we did the rote tasks of long marriages, stacking plastic cups, folding dish towels, swapping out the burnt citronella candle for a fresh one in a jar I never liked. At some point, she touched my arm. She said, "I'm tired." It wasn't a lie. Lies are bolder. Lies ask to be believed. Tiredness just asks to be left alone.
The board's reply arrived at 4:12 p.m. It was short enough to memorize. "Thank you for your message. Records will be made available for inspection after the holiday due to event workload. Regards, HOA Secretary." No date, no time. After the holiday. We were 6 days from the vote. I read it twice. Then I scrolled down and saw the footer, an auto-populating section that shows recent board actions. A single line had been added since yesterday. Approved. Interim extension of Greenview Spaces scope through Q3. Routine. Routine, in the way that a hand that has learned where the sugar bowl is will find it in the dark. I forwarded the email to myself, to my personal archive I keep like a second brain for when life insists on being slippery. Then I printed it and slid it into a binder I labeled with Sharpie, "Boring Facts." That evening I walked the kids down to Judy's house under the pretense of returning her baking tray. Judy waters her flower beds in sensible shoes and a hat that makes her look like someone who retires judges for fun. She took the tray with both hands and smiled at my children as if they were on loan from a museum. "How are we?" she asked. "Thirsty for process," I said. I sent a records request, got a stall. She nodded, as if I had said the lawn was thirsty for rain. "Bring copies," she said. "Keep your emails short, and if you want your handrail, you'll need a quorum." "A quorum I can work on," I said. Liam tried to chase a butterfly with his scooter, failed, laughed. Judy glanced up and down the street, then back at me. "You'll also need a stomach," she said gently. "Process takes longer than outrage, but it holds more weight." On the way home, the kids argued about whether fireworks are stars that come down or pretend stars that go up. I told them both were right in their hearts and wrong in their science, which made them happy. We turned into our driveway, and I noticed something small and stupid that still tightened my jaw. A fresh community update flyer stuck under our wiper. Printed in green ink, the headline announced the July 4th schedule. The third bullet promised Greenview Spaces, now expanded to coordinate fireworks cleanup. Expanded. Routine. After the holiday. I tucked the flyer into the binder with the emails and the certified mail receipt and the notebook list and the library printouts. And for the first time since I saw that hotel confirmation, I felt something solid under my feet. Not comfort, not victory, just traction. The phone buzzed at 9:06 with a number I didn't recognize and a message that was either sloppy or smug. "Appreciate your enthusiasm, Evan. Let's keep things neighborly on the 4th. No name, no signature. Just the 'we're watching you' tone of someone who believes a platform and a microphone can outshout a handrail." I typed a reply I didn't send. Neighborly is exactly what I'm counting on. Then I put my phone face down, checked the kids twice, and set the binder by the door, where I keep my boots when I expect to be outside before dawn.
Judy runs elections the way surgeons run operating rooms. Calm voice, bright light, sharp instruments where everyone can see them. I went back to her place with my boring facts binder and a notebook, and she slid a legal pad across the table like we were drafting a constitution for a very tiny country. "Mechanics first," she said, "feelings after." She laid out the rules in short, solid sentences. Quorum is head count plus validated proxies. Ballots live in sealed envelopes till the count. Candidates declare before the meeting starts. Speeches are 2 minutes. Heckling earns a gavel. Judy's gavel is a wooden spoon. I believed in it more than I believed in most microphones. She opened a tote and took out the hardware. Numbered proxy forms, a lockable box with a slot, a roll of stickers that said, "I voted," even though we were 20 houses and a cul-de-sac. Process isn't pretty, but it photographs well. "I'll be neutral as a level," she said, meeting my eyes so I'd understand it was a promise and a threat. "If you're running, run clean. No names, no rumors, policies only." "Policies," I said,
Relief like cool water. I can do boring. A soft knock at the screen door. Judy waved someone in. A woman about my age stepped inside, clutching a grocery sack like a shield. "You must be Evan," she said. "I'm Priya. I brought lemon bars. They travel better than outrage." Priya lives 2 streets over. Accountant. 2 kids. Ex-husband who moved to Phoenix, and an in-law network that sends advice instead of child support. She smiled with the kind of tired I recognized in my own face. "Marcus said you want transparency," she said, sliding the lemon bars onto the table. "I want receipts. Not metaphorical. Actual receipts." Judy nodded, pleased with the word choice. "You two with Marcus would make a slate. 3 seats up. Platform?" I flipped my notebook to a clean page and wrote while we said the words aloud so they'd feel real. Publish every contract and bid comparison on the HOA site. No sole source awards without 3 documented attempts. Post minutes within 7 days. Independent CPA audit of the last 2 quarters. Vendors must have a real address, not a P.O. box. Judy added one line underlined. No character accusations at the mic. She tapped the wooden spoon near the lockbox. If people want a bonfire, they can go to the fireworks. We mapped the calendar like it was a route to a relative's house we were all a little nervous to visit. Today, print simple 1-page platform sheets. Tomorrow and the next, secure proxies from people who travel for the holiday or hide from the sun. Meeting morning, file candidate declarations, hand out ballots, breathe. "Switzerland doesn't deliver," she said, standing to get the good tape. "You 3 will have to deliver." I walked home with proxy forms under my arm and a plate of lemon bars balanced like evidence. The cul-de-sac smelled like hot grass and somebody's charcoal. Rick's wife dragged 2 folding tables into their garage. She didn't look at me. I didn't look long.
Kara was on the couch when I came in, feet tucked under her, watching a cooking show with the volume low. The tablet glowed on the coffee table as if it had opinions. I set the lemon bars down and the proxies on top of my binder as if that would make them kinder. "I'm running," I said, keeping my voice level, "with Marcus and a neighbor named Priya. Platform is transparency and audits. Judy's counting, neutral, no mud." Kara laughed, light and wrong. "You? Board meetings are boring, Evan." "Then I'll fit right in," I said. She looked past me at the window, at the way the afternoon light turned our cheap curtains gold. "This is going to look like retaliation," she said. "People will say you're punishing Rick because you don't like his leadership." "People can say anything they want," I said. "We'll post contracts, bid comparisons, minutes. They can read instead." "Marla and Jean will have a field day," she said, finally looking at me. "You know that, right? They'll call you petty." "They already do," I said. "They also called me to fix their garbage disposal last winter. I'm talented that way." For a second, something true moved behind her face. Fear, or guilt, or just the exhaustion of keeping up with a story you can't tell without tripping. "Please don't embarrass me," she said softly. "I won't," I said. "That's sort of the point." I fed the kids, answered 2 work texts about a pallet that had wandered off somewhere between receiving and nowhere, and printed the platform sheet on our sputtering home printer. The toner smudged like ash. I reprinted. Judy would have done it better. Switzerland owns a laser printer. At dusk, I carried the recycling to the curb and found Rick halfway up the sidewalk, phone to ear, smile set to neighborly. He held up a finger, 1 minute, and finished whatever sentence he was delivering to someone who probably laughed at his jokes. Then he pocketed the phone and gave me the grin people give when they think charm is bulletproof. "Heard you're throwing your hat in," he said, like he was offering me a chance to back out before I embarrassed myself. "3 hats," I said. "We like odd numbers." "Nothing wrong with a little competition," he said. "Keeps everyone honest." "Agreed," I said, and waited for him to blink. He didn't. He shifted his weight, glanced at the proxy forms on my porch like they were lawn decor he disapproved of, and said, "Let's keep the 4th neighborly, okay?" "I'm counting on it," I said. He nodded once and took 2 steps back like we'd completed a dance. "See you at the grill," he said, then added, almost as an afterthought, "Careful with nails in the road. Contractors get sloppy before holidays."
I watched him walk away and told myself it was a friendly tip. I told myself a lot of friendly things that evening.
After the kids were down, I packed the sparkler bucket again because repetition is how you convince your hands the world still works. I checked the hose. I flattened the platform sheets under a cookbook so they'd dry without curling. I put the binder by the door with my boots. On my way back from the trash cans, I saw it. My truck, listing just a little, like a man who stood up too fast. I crouched and pressed a thumb into the front tire. Soft. The valve cap was gone. A shiny speck of metal winked in the tread, small, fresh, proud of its work. Could be coincidence. Contractors get sloppy before holidays. Nails roll, streets collect them, tires find them. I stood up slow and looked down Sycamore Lane at the string lights people hadn't bothered to take down from last night, at the way they sagged between nails hammered into bark. The cul-de-sac was quiet enough to hear sprinklers tick. I walked back to the porch and turned the wooden spoon Judy had lent me end over end in my fingers like it might be a wand. Tomorrow, proxies. Tonight, air compressor, soap water, and a patch. Petty or random, it didn't matter. Either way, I had a tire to fix and a handrail to build. I patched the tire after the kids were down. Soap water, hiss, plug, air. It held. In the morning, I checked all four, like a man who has learned not to trust the ground. Then I put on a clean shirt, grabbed the platform sheets and a stack of numbered proxy forms from Judy, and started the part I'm actually good at, knocking on doors, looking people in the eye, and asking for something simple. I kept the pitch short. "We're running a transparency slate," I said. "Publish contracts, 3 bids minimum, independent audit, minutes in 7 days. No drama, just receipts. If you'll be out for the holiday, would you appoint me as your proxy? You can revoke at the door if you change your mind." Mrs. Alvarez, who teaches 2nd grade and has a voice that can quiet a cafeteria, signed without blinking. "I've been asking for the landscaping contract for months," she said. "If you post it, bless you." The Nguyen's, both nurses on rotating shifts, read every line like medication labels and then signed together. "We'll be at work," Mr. Nguyen said. "If you win, keep the dumpsters locked. Kids climb." Mr. Harlan, retired Army, made me say the platform out loud twice. "No name-calling?" he asked. "No name-calling," I said. He signed and handed me a rubber band from his wrist. "Bundle by street," he said. "Counting is easier that way." A new couple, the Ridgeways, opened their door halfway and stared at my clipboard like it might bite. "We just moved in," the husband said. "We don't know anyone." "That's the point. You should never need to know someone to know where your dues go." They signed. Halfway down the block, Pushback found me. Tasha, who organizes the craft fair and loves Rick because he tells her he does, folded her arms and hankered herself in her doorway. "This feels like a witch hunt," she said. "It isn't," I said. "Witches are imaginary. Contracts aren't." "You just don't like Rick," she said. "I don't like sole source awards to companies with P.O. boxes," I said, keeping my voice even. "If the process is clean, the audit will prove it." She didn't sign. I thanked her anyway and wrote "home for vote" on my list. You respect the no. That's part of the handrail, too. By late morning, the Sunbelt did the thing it always does, turned the street into a skillet. I stopped at home to drop proxies on the dining table and swap my shirt. Kara breezed in at the same time in a blazer I'd never seen, the kind with buttons that looked like coins. "Walk through," she said, lifting her chin toward the street as if the cul-de-sac were a showroom. "Vendors want eyes on setup space." I handed her a water bottle. "You could text me when you're late," I said. "Kids ask." She took the bottle, turned it in her hands. "I'm here now," she said,
and kissed the air near my cheek. She glanced at the proxy stack like it was laundry, then at the cooler by the door. "Hydrate," she said, and left. At noon, Marla and Jean popped in without knocking, all bunting and advice. Jean held up a roll of red, white, blue like he had invented patriotism. "You should drape this over the smoker," he said. "Rick had it done last year. Looked sharp. Photos loved it." "We're keeping it simple," I said, stacking the proxies in tens because Mr. Harlan was right. Marla ran a fingertip over the dining table as if checking for dust. "Kara says you're collecting signatures," she said. "If you need a quote about leadership for your flyer—" "No quotes," I said. "Just policies." She smiled the way people smile at small dogs that won't stop barking. "Policies are for people without charisma," she said, and set a plate of cookies on top of my binder. I moved them gently to a placemat and wished them a happy almost holiday until they left. The ombudsman's reply landed at 1:43 p.m. with the tone of an office that has seen everything. "Thank you for your inquiry. Associations must provide access to financial and contract records within a reasonable time, typically 10 business days, absent a bona fide emergency. Event preparation does not suspend statutory rights. Please document any refusals." I printed it, highlighted the phrase "does not suspend," and slid it into boring facts. Marcus joined me for the afternoon shift. We worked opposite sides of the street, trading notes every third house. "The Pearsons are out of town. Left a proxy with me." He handed me a manila envelope with a sticky note. "For Evan, HOA vote." Inside was a signed proxy and a handwritten list of questions about a dead tree that had been threatening their fence since Easter.
A pickup rolled by slow, not suspicious on its own. Contractors move slow when they scout. But I watched the brake lights anyway. My patched tire held. The road held. The day held. Near dinner, Priya texted a photo of her stack. 22 on Oak, 2 holdouts. One told me to get a hobby. Joke's on them. I sent her a thumbs up and a lemon bar emoji because I am a man who now uses emojis like punctuation. Back home, I rubber banded the day's haul and logged each name in a spreadsheet so Judy's count would move like a metronome, not a drum solo. Liam and Ava colored flags at the table and debated whether hot dogs are sandwiches. "They are," Ava said. "They have bread. That's the rule." Kara came back after sunset, hair up, blazer over her arm, face set to neutral. "How'd door knocking go?" she asked, as if we were discussing Girl Scout cookies. "Good," I said. "People like handrails." She leaned in the doorway and watched the kids color. "Make sure the bucket is ready for sparklers," she said, and I nodded because I had already checked it twice. I took the trash out at 9. The air had cooled to something a human could breathe. The street was dark except for the steady light above our door and the jittery glow of a TV 2 houses down. The envelope was there when I turned back, leaning against the planter like it had grown out of the geraniums. Manila, no stamp, no handwriting on the front, nothing at all until I flipped the flap and slid the papers into my hands. Photocopies, invoices, Greenview Spaces LLC across the top, in a font that wanted you to respect it. Line items for consulting, round numbers that don't happen when people actually count. Event coordination, cleanup expansion, vendor debrief, on-site. Initials at the bottom right, circled in hard pencil, RG. A post-it stuck to the last page, in block letters, Sharpie sure of itself. Check dates versus minutes. Underneath, smaller, for your audit. FOS. Friend of Sycamore? Or something else? I didn't know. I did know Judy's voice in my head. Chain of custody. Don't wave papers in the air. Don't make a scene. Make a record. I slid the pages into plastic sleeves and then into boring facts. I wrote the time and where I found them. I took a photo of the envelope on the porch with the porch light on, then one with it off, then one with my watch in the corner, like a bad detective in a good movie.
Inside, I tucked the kids in and turned off the hall light. Kara stood in the kitchen, glass in her hand, face unreadable. "Long day?" she asked. "Productive," I said. She swirled the glass and set it down without drinking. "Let's keep things neighborly," she said, like it was a prayer or a warning. "I plan to," I said. Then I put the binder by the door with my boots and wrote one more line on the notebook page before I slept. "Tomorrow, show Judy. Ask how to log anonymous materials without poisoning the well."
Judy read the photocopies like a nurse reads a chart, one eyebrow up, pen already in hand. We sat at her kitchen table with the blinds half drawn against the heat, my boring facts binder open, plastic sleeves shining like fish scales. "Chain of custody," she said, tapping the first page. "Write where you found them, when, condition, and who touched them after you. Number every page in pencil at the top right. No staples. If the board later hands you originals, we compare line for line." I wrote exactly what she said on a sticky note and stuck the sticky note to myself. She slid a manila folder across. "Anonymous exhibits live in here until an independent person, auditor, ombudsman, or management, verifies against the association's books. You don't waive these at a grill." "I wasn't going to," I said. "I know," she said. "I'm saying it so I hear it too." We moved to a list. Judy dictated, I typed. "Please provide by appointment the following for inspection and copying. 1. All executed contracts with Greenview Spaces LLC in the past 2 quarters. 2. Bid solicitations and comparisons for the same scopes. 3. Approved minutes reflecting votes. 4. General ledger disbursements to Greenview. Dates, amounts, memos. 5. W-9 and vendor setup. 6. Proof of insurance on file. 7. Any sole source justifications." She added, "Use the phrase statutory rights. Bureaucrats perk up for that." "Copies?" I asked. "Ask first," she said. "If they say inspection only, remind them state law allows copies for a reasonable fee. Bring a portable scanner just in case." Quietly. She sealed the anonymous folder and wrote Greenview, Anon, on the tab, then locked it in a tin box that used to hold holiday cookies. "Switzerland," she said, and I believed her. Back home, I sent the request to the board and the management company and copied the ombudsman. I kept the tone boring on purpose. The subject line said, "Records inspection, statutory request," and the body read like a grocery list written by a person who likes to alphabetize lettuce. The secretary replied an hour later with new firmness. "Inspection available July 5, 10 a.m., management office, no photography, note-taking only, copies not provided at this time due to workload." I forwarded it to the ombudsman and asked, like a polite child, whether no photography and no copies were a thing or simply a preference. The ombudsman's office took 20 minutes to send a paragraph I wanted framed. "Members are generally entitled to copies for a reasonable charge and may use non-disruptive methods to capture records. An association should not impose a categorical ban on copying or photography." I printed the email, highlighted categorical ban, and slid it into the part of the binder where I keep bravery. Kara came in as I capped my highlighter. She set her keys down like punctuation and reached for the faucet like a person who needed water more than they needed conversation. "Judy called," she said, not turning around. "She said you were careful." That was the word she used. "That's good," I said. "She also said you're running motions the second you get a seat." Now she turned, towel in her hands, hair pulled back, face set. "Are you trying to humiliate me in front of my neighbors?" "No," I said. "I'm trying to put the numbers where anyone can see them." Her jaw worked. "You're not an auditor." "I don't have to be," I said. "The point is to hire one." She took a breath like someone coming up from a deep pool. "You're going to cost us the event," she said. "Vendors don't like drama. They'll walk." "Vendors like checks," I said, "and sunlight. Real vendors, anyway." She flinched, small, there and gone. "You're making this ugly," she said. "It doesn't have to be ugly." "It can be boring," I said. "I'm begging for boring." She looked past me at the kids coloring in the next room. "Marla thinks you're doing this to get back at Rick," she said, "that it's personal." "Marla thinks I'm doing everything to get back at somebody," I said. "Ask her why." Kara's voice dropped. "Say what you want to say." I set the highlighter down so I wouldn't snap it. "I want a clean process," I said. "I want 3 bids and minutes and a CPA. I want to walk down our street and not wonder who's paying for the confetti." "And the hotel?" she asked, too quickly. "Is that what this is actually about?" I made my mouth a line. "I'm not talking about that here," I said, and nodded toward the crayons. "I won't make their kitchen a courtroom." She stared at me long enough to measure the room, then nodded once, as if a verdict had been delivered and it wasn't the one she expected. "Fine," she said. "Just don't make a spectacle." "I won't," I said. "That's your department." She almost smiled, almost. After she left to check on table deliveries, I built the sparkler bucket like it was a ritual. Water half full, tongs next to it, metal tray for the dead stars. Ava came in and asked if we could make fireworks in a jar, which is just oil and water and food coloring pretending to be magic. We did it on the counter. Liam set ear protection by the back door and explained decibels to his sister in a solemn 9-year-old voice. When they were in bed, I went through the binder again and made myself say the facts out loud, alone in the kitchen. Contract dates, P.O. box, sole source, ledger. Words you can take to a meeting without breaking anything. At 9:31, the management office sent a second email. "Please confirm you will not record the inspection." I replied with the ombudsman's paragraph pasted neatly, no commentary, just the relevant sentence and the promise to be non-disruptive. 2 minutes later, "Understood. We will accommodate copying for a reasonable fee. Please bring your own device if desired." It read like surrender typed with clenched teeth. I rinsed 2 plates, turned off lights, checked the back door, and finally let myself sit. The house did that late-night settling thing, wood remembering trees, pipes cooling, the refrigerator clearing its throat.
My phone buzzed at 11:52 with a number I didn't recognize. One text, no greeting. No punctuation either, which made it worse. "Back off or the party loses power." A second bubble arrived before I could absorb the first, a photo. Me on Judy's porch earlier that morning, binder open, her wooden spoon gavel glinting like a joke. The angle was wrong for a neighbor's window, too clean for a drive-by. Close, like a lens peeking through leaves. I stared at the image until my eyes watered and the white porch rail blurred into a barcode. Then I set the phone down and wrote a new line on my list. Utility, confirm permits and backup. Quietly. I didn't answer the text. I didn't tell Kara. I didn't tell the kids. I put my phone face down on the table and my hand flat on the cover of the binder like it was a life jacket. Somewhere down Sycamore, an air conditioner kicked on and hummed long enough for me to hear my own pulse. Tomorrow, I'd call the utility. I'd book a backup generator from someone with an address that wasn't a box. I'd keep it boring until someone else made it loud. And I'd show up, with a handrail, with receipts, with a wooden spoon ready to count. I called the utility when the house was still yawning. Kids in pajamas, cereal going soft. I asked for events/distribution like a man looking for a supervisor at a hardware store. A tech named Ray came on, voice like gravel and coffee. "Sycamore Lane block permit," I said. "Stage, lights, 2 bounce houses, 1 grill that thinks it's a locomotive. We got a text threat about power. I don't expect you to police phones. I do want to know if our circuit is already hanging by a thread." He typed. I heard the clack. "Feeder T12, 25 kVA pad mount 2 legs," he said, like reading off scars. "You'll be fine in normal weather. Load spikes after sunset, window units and porch lights. We can flag a standby." "Flag it," I said.
And if someone accidentally pulls a disconnect, that's a locked cabinet and a felony. All note patrols. You want a job order number? I wrote it in my notebook between a grocery list and the ombudsman quote. Numbers make air feel solid. Then I called Civic Power Rentals, a warehouse on the Beltway run by a guy I knew from Little League. I need a quiet Jenny and spider boxes for a stage and lights. If nothing goes wrong, it idles like a dog nap. Weekend rate, deposit, delivery tomorrow. You have a licensed electrician? Marcus coached U5 soccer and wire-nutted half this neighborhood. He'll do the distro. Perfect, he said. We'll send a 25 kVA towable. Bring it back full of diesel and stories.
Marcus texted before I could. Stage vendor swapped. He'd gotten a written quote from a group that did school plays. Real contract, insurance on the header, clause for cancellation that didn't read like a threat. He sent a photo of the paper, his finger pointing at the words, not affiliated with HOA vendors, like a man blessing a marriage. By noon, the generator rolled up like a small moon on wheels. Mat housing, big muffler, lift points you could trust. The driver parked it in my driveway and handed me a binder of stickers and rules. Sound is 62 dBA at 7 meters, he said. That's polite for a machine. Great, I said. We're trying to be polite. Kara watched from the porch, arms folded into a shape that said, I am not asking questions I cannot live with the answers to. What is that? She asked, voice neutral the way a courtroom clock is neutral. Back up, quiet, safer than hoping. She stepped closer as if proximity could shrink it. People are saying you're trying to sabotage Rick, she said, voice dropping for the word sabotage so it would feel dangerous on my porch. People can come look at the job order number in my notebook, or the contract Marcus got, or the ombudsman email. Sabotage is whispering, I'm printing. She looked at Kara, who didn't look back. This is
Neighborly, I said. When the lights stay on, it will be neighborly. After dinner, while the kids made a fort out of towels and optimism, I called Ray back and gave him the license plate of the generator and the exact location of the pad mount. He grunted approval, the highest compliment a utility can give. We'll swing a truck through at 2100, he said. If anyone's loitering by your cabinet, they'll meet a guy who likes to file reports. At 9, Marcus and I did a quiet test. He flipped the breaker on the stage distro. I thumbed the Jenny to life. It purred, low and even. The string lights over the chalked-off dance square woke up like fireflies. We ran a hairdryer and a speaker to load it, then shut it down and locked the hitch. I wrote fuel 92% in my notebook, like a man logging breaths. Back inside, I checked the kids' ear protection, filled the sparkler bucket, laid out the metal tray the way you lay out silverware for a last calm dinner before company comes. Kara stood at the sink, museum still. You getting what you wanted? She asked finally. I want the lights to stay on and the numbers to be public, I said. That's it. You're not the kind of man who wants just that, she said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a map she used to navigate me once upon a time. I didn't answer. I don't always like the man I am when I answer. At 11:06, my phone buzzed. No words this time, just a photo. The green metal pad mount cabinet at the end of Sycamore, shot tight, the lock in frame. A zip tie hung from the latch, sliced clean. The caption bubble stayed empty, like a dare. I opened the front door and stood on the porch, listening for anything that sounded like a screwdriver pretending to be a key. The street breathed. Sprinklers took turns. Somewhere a dog argued with a raccoon about jurisdiction. I texted the photo to Ray. He replied with a sentence that made my shoulders drop half an inch. Truck already on your block. Sit tight, don't go hero. A minute later, blue work lights washed the end of the street. Soft and official. I set my phone down face up and wrote one new line on the list in the margin where I keep hopes. On the day, if nothing breaks, no one needs to know what we fixed. Judy turned her dining room into a small temporary democracy. She lined up clipboards, numbered proxies, and a lockbox that used to hold vacation cash. A kitchen timer sat beside her wooden spoon. 2 minutes each for candidate statements, she said, setting the timer. If anyone heckles, the spoon speaks. Marcus arrived with a printout labeled Election Flow, like we were running a fire drill. 1. Verify homeowner or proxy. 2. Hand ballot. 3. Seal an envelope. 4. Drop in box. 5. Sticker. Priya showed with a stack of single-page platforms. No names, no rumors, just the 5 policies in 14-point type. Policies photograph well, she said, and Judy beamed. We rehearsed the boring parts until they felt like muscle memory. Where the line would start, how to mark proxies by street so counting wouldn't turn into religion, what to say if someone tried to film the ballots. No, Judy said, they can film me counting. How to file a motion cleanly if we won seats. I kept a pen in my hand the whole time so I didn't start talking with it. At home, I slid our last wave of platform sheets into mail slots with a note at the bottom. If we win, first action is a vote to hire an independent CPA to audit all Greenview contracts. Hold us to it. I signed my name. People should see who is asking for their trust. By afternoon, the cul-de-sac smelled like dry grass and lighter fluid. Bounce houses arrived and inhaled themselves into color. 2 teenagers taped off a dance square with blue painter's tape and took a bow like stagehands. I checked cable runs twice, then tucked the spider box deeper under the stage so only the band would know where the power ended and music began. Marla drifted by wearing a patriotic scarf and concern. Please don't turn this into a courtroom, she said, rearranging napkins that were already aligned. Kara has worked hard. So have a lot of neighbors, I said. This is to make their work visible. Jean followed with a cooler and a comment. You boys and your paperwork, he said, like he was tweezing a splinter. Rick just gets things done. Great, I said. He can get the contracts posted by next Friday. Jean blinked. Inside, Liam sorted ear protection like a quartermaster. Ava practiced waving 2 paper flags at once and nearly took out a vase. We need a snacks plan, she announced. Pretzels before popsicles so our hands aren't sticky when we sparkle. Promote her to logistics, Marcus said when I told him later. We can use the help. At dusk, we test-walked the vote path with Judy one more time, from the sign-in table on the driveway to the lockbox at her dining room, then out the side gate and back to the grills. In and out, no bottlenecks. Democracy shouldn't feel like a DMV. Kara watched from our porch, arms crossed. I stood on the sidewalk and tried to talk across the space without making neighbors a jury. We'll keep it clean, I said. You'll embarrass me, she said quietly. I'll embarrass the contracts. Different thing. Her mouth tightened. You could have told me you were printing flyers. I did, I said, twice. She looked past me at the stage, at the string lights we had tested. Just don't be a show, please.
The point is to end the shows, I said, and I don't know if she heard me. By 10, the street yawned and shut its eyes. I laid out the kids' ear protection, set the sparkler bucket by the hose, and tucked 2 tiny flags into the pocket of my volunteer lanyard because Ava said it made me look official. I checked the generator fuel, wrote fuel 88% in my notebook, locked the hitch, and headed in. On the table, I stacked my own notes for morning, a 1-sentence motion if we won. I move that the board engage an independent CPA to audit all Greenview contracts and publish the report within 30 days. A follow-up resolution if they tried to dodge. I move that all executed vendor contracts, bid comparisons, and minutes be posted within 7 days. Judy would like the syntax. The wooden spoon would approve. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and then took it off because a father sleeps light the week of fireworks. I didn't set an alarm. I didn't need one. At 11:37, the tablet chimed from the counter with the crisp bell of something corporate. New message in the joint inbox. Riverside Suites. E-folio. My stomach already knew the words it would see. I opened it anyway. Stay date, July 3rd through 4. Room type, King. Folio name, Vendor Debrief, K. No second name this time. No R. Graham. Just the letter that starts my wife and a memo line that made my eyes feel like I'd been swimming with them open.
Charges: room, taxes, 2 bottled waters, late checkout. A line I hadn't seen on earlier folios. Amenity: hospitality plate, 2. Maybe fruit, maybe cheese, maybe silverware for 2. I stood very still, the way you do when you hear glass break somewhere you can't see. The house around me was asleep, the old boards, the cheap blinds, the kids breathing in their rooms. I was awake in a way that made air feel like something I needed to remember how to use. I forwarded the folio to my own archive without comment. I printed it and slid it into the binder between Ombudsman, copying allowed, and inspection date confirmed. Paper has weight, screens don't. I did not go wake Kara. I did not practice a speech in the mirror. I did not throw anything, although the image of the line Hospitality Plate 2 tried to climb out of the page and push me. Instead, I washed 2 coffee mugs and set them upside down on the counter for morning, because habit is a handrail too. I checked the back door. I touched the wooden spoon in my bag like a talisman. I looked in on Liam and Ava and listened long enough to prove to myself that air still moves in and out of small chests on schedule. When I finally lay down, Kara stirred and rolled, her back to me, a shape I knew well in a darkness I didn't. We breathed in the same room with different air.
Out on Sycamore, a bottle rocket somewhere mistimed itself and fizzed into a harmless fizz. The neighborhood swallowed the sound. My phone lit once more with a calendar alert I'd set earlier in the week. Election signage, out by 7 a.m. I closed my eyes and didn't sleep. The timer in my head clicked to morning. Morning came red and white and blue and hot. I chalked arrows on the sidewalk from Judy's driveway. Sign in, ballot, box, while Liam arranged ear protection like a quartermaster and Ava practiced waving 2 flags without concussing herself. The generator sat under the maple like a sleeping animal. I patted the panel once. Stay! Neighbors set up folding chairs in territory they defend more fiercely than property lines. Bounce houses inhaled until they were bright and ridiculous. Someone tested a speaker with a country song about small towns and second chances. It felt corny and perfect and like a dare. Judy opened her door at 9 on the dot and turned her dining room into a precinct. Wooden spoon, gavel, kitchen timer, speech clock, clipboards, a surprising number. She penned a paper to the siding. 2 minutes, no heckling, policies only. Switzerland, writes in Sharpie. Rick arrived late enough to be noticed, not late enough to be rude. Polo shirt, microphone voice, the grin of a man who thinks charm is currency you can print at home. Kara walked beside him in a sundress that made strangers friendly and me careful. Marla and Jean hovered like campaign staff who never learned the word staff. Judy tapped the spoon once. Candidates? Marcus went first. Publish contracts. 3 bids. Minutes in 7 days. Independent audit. He nodded like he was naming parts of a boat. Priya held up a single page. If you can't find a vendor's address on Google Street View, she said, we don't pay them. It was my turn. I didn't look at Rick. I looked at the people who had signed proxies with tired hands. I fix things for a living, I said. You should not need to know someone to know where your money goes. We'll make it boring. Judy's timer chirped. Spoon tapped. Ballots. The line moved. Chains checked. Proxies validated by street bundle just like Mr. Harland had taught me. Stickers handed out to adults who grinned like they were 5. I stood by the porch rail and watched the envelopes stack under the slot. The way you watch a bridge you built hold cars you love. Rick worked the edges with practiced warmth. Good to see you, he said to everyone, which is a sentence that means nothing if you say it to everyone. Kara walked beside him in a sundress that made strangers friendly and me careful. Marla and Jean hovered like campaign staff who never learned the word staff.
At noon, grills came to life in a language I speak. Fat hit heat. Smoke learned the word up. I turned sausages with tongs I trust and answered the same 3 questions 10 times. Where do I drop my ballot? Where do I get a sticker? When are fireworks? Judy answered with the spoon and the timer and a smile she saves for babies and bylaws. A brownout flickered the string lights at 1. They dimmed, thought about it, changed their minds. The generator purred a question. Want me to? We didn't. Not yet. I wrote 12:59, flicker, in the margin of my notebook anyway, because I am the kind of man who records blinks. Judy closed the box at 2 with the solemnity of a curtain call. She carried it to the dining table like it held something living. 3 volunteer counters, Judy, a nurse, and retired CPA, sat, sleeves rolled, metaphorically. Doors open, Judy said. Watch if you like. Don't narrate. Envelopes opened, ballots unfolded, names read and ticked in neat columns. The room sounded like pencils and held breath. Kids ran past the threshold and were dragged back by parents who remembered democracy clogs easily. I stood in the doorway and counted my own heartbeats like a dumb superstition from a movie where a man learns a lesson. Rick leaned against the doorframe opposite me and did not smirk. He's better at this than that. Judy stacked 3 neat piles and wrote numbers in the air before saying them. Seat 1, Marcus. Applause. Seat 2, Priya. Applause, louder. Seat 3, she paused long enough to make me add a heartbeat, Henderson. Neutral neighbor. Rick Slate took 1, ours took 2. The room moved, a tide that did not spill. Judy tapped the spoon. Board will convene for officer elections in 10 minutes, she said, because Switzerland runs a clock even when the kitchen is full of sausage smoke. We filed to the shade behind the stage, where the board huddled around a folding table that used to be for card games. Henderson blinked like a deer in a cul-de-sac. Marcus looked at me, I looked at Priya. President, Judy prompted, neutral. Henderson, Priya said before anyone else could launch a war. Henderson startled. Marcus nodded. I nodded. Rick smiled like a man squeezing a lemon to hide the twitch. Vice President, Judy said. Priya, Marcus said. Secretary, I said. Marcus, Priya said. Treasurer, Henderson croaked, pointing at me like he'd found a chair that looked sturdy. Judy wrote it down. Motion? She asked, eyes on me. I stood where the people grilling could see me and where microphones could not. I move that the board engage an independent CPA to audit all Greenview contracts and publish the report within 30 days, I said, exactly like I'd practiced on my kitchen counter at midnight. Second, Priya said. All in favor? Judy prompted. Aye, from Henderson, surprised to find his mouth participating. Aye, from Priya. Aye, from Marcus. Aye, from me. Rick did not add a word to the air. Motion carries, Judy said, tapping the spoon once. Somewhere a car horn answered like a joke.
We posted our 5 policies on a foam board near the lemonade and the kids' face paint table. No names, no gloating. I put the wooden spoon down beside a stack of I voted stickers and watched 3 people take a sticker they'd already earned just to put it on a second shirt. Kara finally walked over, late afternoon sun turning the white of her dress into a version of light the human eye likes. Congratulations, she said. The word fit like a dress that didn't. Thank you, I said. Please don't make it cruel, she said, not looking at the foam board or the people who were starting to read it out loud. Cruel is for cowards, I said. This is receipts. The parade of small joys resumed. Water balloon skirmishes, the neighbor who always burns burgers insisting burnt is a flavor, kids with blue tongues arguing about the moon. When dusk found us, we handed out sparklers like we were arming fireflies. The generator never had to wake. The lights held. People laughed. Someone thanked the board without specifying which one. When the first rocket went up, Liam clapped with his whole body. Ava leaned into my leg like balance was something you borrow. I thought, this is what I wanted to save. Not a seat, not a motion, a street that doesn't feel like a stage. My phone buzzed in my pocket near the end of the show. An email, subject line plain as bread.
I'm sorry. Sender, a personal address I recognized as Rick's private Gmail, the one he used for neighborhood fantasy football. Message, you deserved to know sooner. There's something you need to see. Please look before you decide how public to make this. One attachment, greenview_beneficialowner.pdf. Fireworks crackled overhead, bright and loud enough to empty everyone's pockets of silence. I didn't open it on the grass. I didn't open it under the maple. I held the phone in my palm and watched color fall. I opened the attachment before the smoke cleared from our street. Greenview_beneficialowner.pdf wasn't a bomb. It was a ledger. Registered agent, P.O. Box, and then the line that stripped away the costume. Beneficial owner, Daniel Graham, Rick's brother-in-law. 3 pages in, a hospitality ledger, comped rooms, K, in tidy columns beside dates I already knew. The e-folio from the night before stared up from my binder. Vendor debrief, K, hospitality plate 2, late checkout. Morning, kids in pajamas, coffee cooling. I set the binder on the table like a fire extinguisher and told Kara, sit.
She did, hands in her lap, eyes on mine like she was measuring the distance to a door I wasn't going to open. I'm recording, I said, flat. I set my phone between us, tapped the red circle, turned the speaker on so the click was obvious. Are you okay with that? Her throat worked. If it means you'll listen, she said. Say yes for the record. Yes, she said, small. I slid the printouts across the table. This is Greenview's owner, I said. This is the hospitality ledger with your initial. This is the hotel folio from last night. Vendor debrief, K, 2 waters, late checkout, hospitality plate for 2. Start at the beginning and do not lie. Who was in that room with you? Color drained, like someone pulled a plug. It was work, she said, and I shook my head once. Name. She stared at the paper as if it could give her a better answer. Rick, she said. How many times? She stopped, swallowed. 3. Dates, I said. Speak them. She did, barely above a whisper. They matched my archive. The phone on the table heard her better than I wanted to. Early morning yesterday. You checked out late. Where were you between 5:30 and 11? You walked in here after noon and told our kids, permit office. It was the debrief. Vendors. Pam at the city says the route was approved weeks ago, I said. You told me you didn't know who Pam was. She closed her eyes. I lied. On the record, I said. I lied, she repeated. You told me last month those rooms were for out-of-town face painters, and I believed you until the folios started arriving with R. Graham and K in the notes. It started as meetings. Rick, said we had to move fast because the board would drag. He needed me to keep momentum. He made me feel... She stopped, shook her head. That part doesn't matter. I crossed lines. Which ones? I said. Say it. She stared at the table. We slept together, she said, the words landing like dropped silverware. Twice. The other time, we didn't. We kissed. It doesn't matter. It's wrong all the ways. The room shrank around the sound. Liam laughed at a cartoon in the next room. Ava asked if fireworks could be breakfast. My hand stayed still on the binder. Who paid? I asked. Greenview, she said. He said they comped rooms for vendor debriefs. He said it was normal. I tapped the ledger line with my fingernail. Comped rooms, K. Normal looks like a contract. This looks like hush money. Her voice broke. Evan, please, don't make this a story in front of our neighbors. I'm sorry.
I am so... This is already a story. You wrote it in folios. She reached for my hand and stopped when she saw my face. The kids, she said. Whatever you do, please, don't punish them for my stupidity.
We're going to talk about the kids, I said, but first we finish the facts. She nodded, face the color of paper. Ask. The first time, I said. Where? Riverside Suites, she said, after a planning meeting. He said the vendor needed us to go over the schedule where we wouldn't be interrupted. And you believed that, I said. I wanted to, she said. I wanted to feel useful, important. It's ugly to say out loud. I made it uglier. Did you tell Marla and Jean? She flinched. No. Did you tell them anything useful at all? I said. Because they've been in my kitchen calling this a witch hunt while you were arranging fruit plates in a king room. She covered her face with both hands and breathed like someone trying not to drown. I was going to end it after the 4th, she said. I told him that. After the check cleared and the vote, I said. Convenient. Silence sat down with us. I turned the page. This PDF, I said, and slid greenview_beneficial_owner.pdf back in front of her. Daniel Graham is Rick's brother-in-law. That's who's cashing the checks you helped route. You kept momentum straight into a family ledger. Her eyes widened. I didn't know that. On the record, I said. I didn't, she said. If I had, you still booked a king room, I said. 3 times. She folded in on herself, smaller and smaller, until only her voice was left. I'm sorry. Say it into the phone, I said, because part of me had become a man I didn't recognize, and part of me knew I would need this when the apologies changed shape later. I'm sorry, she said to the red circle. I lied about Pam. I lied about the rooms. I slept with Rick. It was wrong. I'm sorry. I stopped the recording. The room exhaled and didn't refill. We're separating. Trial period. 60 days. You can stay at your sister's. We'll draft a schedule for the kids and keep their routines almost boring. No scenes, no speeches, no more hotel folios. She nodded, as if that were mercy and punishment both. Do we tell them now? She asked. After school drop-off tomorrow, with a script. We're adults, we can act like it. She reached again, and this time I let her hand rest on the table near mine, not touching. Thank you for... She stopped. For not exploding? I did, just not where they could see it. When she went to pack, I took the phone to the sink and played the recording once with the water running because I am petty and because I needed to hear my own voice be steady. Then I emailed greenview_beneficial_owner.pdf and the folios to the board's new address for records_audit with a single line, for the independent CPA. My phone buzzed before I closed the lid on the binder. New email, terse subject, scope update, additional vendor. From the CPA we'd voted to hire. We've identified a second entity with overlapping addresses and banking. Need access to full ledgers and W-9 files. Can you attend a short call at 3 p.m.? I looked at the hallway where Kara's silhouette moved past the kid's door, at the sparkler bucket by the back door still half full of yesterday's water, at the wooden spoon Judy had left on our counter like a blessing. Rick's email hit an hour after Kara started packing. Don't make me your enemy. I answered with one sentence and an address. 3 o'clock. Our living room. Bring your wife and your daughter. Bring anyone you call family. We'll stick to facts. At 2:55, Marla and Jean arrived first, armed with baked goods and opinions. Jean set a flag napkin on my table like a deed. Marla tilted her head. We can help you avoid a scene, she said, if you'll stop whatever this crusade is. This isn't a crusade, I said, and set my binder down like a bell. It's a reading. Kara stood in the hall, pale and small in a sweater she didn't need. She'd told me she'd stay for the conversation, then go to her sister's. She looked at the floor the way people look at ice. Rick came at 3 sharp, wife in a navy dress at his side, daughter behind them with a planner and a ring that caught light. The girl couldn't be more than 22. She looked at me like I might be a coach or a cop. She hadn't decided which would be worse. "Let's be adults," Rick said, professional warmth already on. "No need to. We're going to be boring. That's the point." I clicked my phone to record and set it face up. "On the record," I said. "Everyone good?" Rick's wife swallowed. "Yes." His daughter nodded, confused. Kara whispering, "Yes." Marla sniffed. Gene folded his arms like a man bracing to be right. I opened greenviewbeneficialowner.pdf to the page with the name Daniel Graham and slid it to the center. "This is the owner of the vendor that won all your consulting work. Your brother-in-law." Rick's jaw flexed. "Vendor relations are handled by—" "Next page," I said. I slid the hospitality ledger. Circles in pencil around comped rooms, K, and dates. "These are charges Greenview comped. The initial is my wife's." The daughter leaned forward. "Dad?" she asked, quiet. Rick turned toward her instead of me. "Debriefs, vendor things, it's—" I put the e-folio from the night before on top. Vendor debrief, K, hospitality plate, 2, late checkout. The number 2 looked bigger in my living room. The daughter's face moved through 3 expressions and stopped on the one people use right before they get older. "Why does it say 2? Who is the second plate for?"
"Room service defaults to 2, Rick said too fast. "It's standard." "No," I said. "Standard is a contract in a conference room." Marla tried to cut in. "Evan, don't perform." "This is not a performance," I said. "It's a eulogy." The room went still enough to hear the cooler hum. I kept my voice even. "A eulogy for the story Marla and Gene have loved to tell about me. About small men and big leaders. About how shame is a tool." I looked at Kara's parents. "Here lies the fantasy that you ever had our marriage's best interest in your mouth. Cause of death? Contempt, with a known comorbidity of microphones." Gene flushed. "Now see here. You tried to humiliate me on my own porch," I said. "Call me petty. Call me small. You did it while your daughter was booking king rooms under vendor debrief K." I turned to Kara. "Say it again for the record." Her lips trembled. "I lied about Pam. I lied about the rooms. I slept with Rick. It was wrong. I'm sorry." She was looking at the table, but the phone heard her. So did everyone else. Rick's wife made a sound I won't forget. Not a word. A sound like something tearing where it shouldn't. She put a hand on the back of a chair to keep the room from tipping. The daughter picked up the folio with 2 fingers, as if it might burn. "You told me you traveled for the HOA because people needed you," she said to her father. "Mom and I bought a dress for the gala because people needed you." Rick reached for her wrist. She pulled back. "It wasn't like that," he said. "This is being twisted." I tapped my phone. "There's more," I said, and pressed play. Kara's voice filled the room in that thin, honest way people use when truth finally gets out of their mouth. "I lied. I slept with Rick. It was wrong. I'm sorry." She was looking at the table, but the phone heard her. So did everyone else. Rick's wife made a sound I won't forget. Not a word. A sound like something tearing where it shouldn't. She put a hand on the back of a chair to keep the room from tipping. The daughter picked up the folio with 2 fingers, as if it might burn. "You told me you traveled for the HOA because people needed you," she said to her father. "Mom and I bought a dress for the gala because people needed you." Rick reached for her wrist. She pulled back. "It wasn't like that," he said. "This is being twisted." I tapped my phone. "There's more," I said, and pressed play. Kara's voice filled the room in that thin, honest way people use when truth finally gets out of their mouth. "I lied. I slept with Rick. It was wrong. I'm sorry." The words hung where pictures of our kids used to hang, before I moved them for fear they'd learn new vocabulary.
Rick's wife went very still. The daughter closed her eyes, opened them, and then looked at me with a kind of relief I didn't expect. "Thank you," she said. "It wasn't for me. It was for the ridiculous clarity of hearing a thing named." Rick tried to rally. "This is private." "It was," I said, "until you billed it to the neighborhood and CC'd my house." Marla found her footing in scolding. "Evan, airing dirty laundry." "You tried to make me dirty laundry," I said quietly. "Consider this a eulogy for that, too." I turned back to Rick. "The audit starts today," I said. "The board voted. A CPA will map every check your brother-in-law's LLC took. Compliance will get the file. If you'd like a statement on the record, give it now."
He stared at the binder like a dog stares at a door and wills it to open. "I'll have counsel contact you," he said finally. "Have them contact the CPA," I said, "and the ombudsman, and your daughter." The girl set the folio down very gently. "I need air," she said to her mother, and they stepped onto the porch without slamming the door because some people were raised right, even on bad days. Gene blew out through his nose. "You didn't have to make a show," he said, like a man more offended by lighting than by what the light finds. I met his eyes. "This was a service," I said, "a eulogy for what we're not doing anymore. No more lies in my kitchen, no more microphones pretending to be morals." Kara put her hand on the back of a chair the way her soon-to-be former mother-in-law had. "I'll go to my sister's now," she said. "We'll tell the kids tomorrow after school, like we said." Scripted. Short. True. Marla opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "You'll regret humiliating us," she managed. "You humiliated yourselves," I said, and felt nothing but the steady click of a clock. "You just finally got the audience you've always played to." Rick's phone vibrated. He didn't look. For once, he understood that the room he was in mattered more than the one on the other end. I walked him to the door the way a man walks a contractor out after a bad bid, polite, final. On the porch, her daughter stood with her arms around herself, looking at the chalk where Ava had drawn 2 stars and a crooked moon. She didn't glance at me, and I was grateful. This wasn't about grace, it was about gravity. Inside, I shut the door. The house exhaled. Kara picked up a bag and paused. "Thank you for not making me the villain," she said. "You wrote your own part," I said. "I just read it out loud." After she left, I called the CPA and confirmed tomorrow's inspection. I forwarded the folios and the PDF to the board's records, audit, address, added the audio file, and copied the ombudsman. No commentary, just the inventory of what happened. At dusk, Liam and Ava ate mac and cheese in bowls that don't break. We watched a neighborhood we saved return to normal speed. The generator never had to wake up. The lights held. Kids rode scooters in lines that wobbled, then straightened. When the dishes were done and the house found its quiet, I took the binder off the table and slid it onto a shelf next to the cookbooks and the school forms and the manual for the smoke alarm. A handrail among handrails. A Bori book with 2 words on the spine in black marker. We learned. Outside, the last stray firework hissed somewhere and turned into nothing. I stood at the sink long enough to hear the refrigerator clear its throat the way it does when it decides to keep working. And for once, that felt like enough of an ending.